and we will say, Moroccans do this, Americans do this, Chinese do this. Obviously, those are generalizations. But when we do that, we have to commit that we're going to engage in mindful generalizations. Mindful generalizations means that it's a first guess only. It's just a hypothesis. Our job and our duty and our obligation is to continue to try to understand the individual, the situation, and be focused on how is this person that I'm dealing with different from anybody else. So yeah, so while we need to generalize as a beginning of our troubleshooting process, we have to discard when that assumption is no longer accurate, and we believe that it never applies to everyone in every situation. That's our agreement. Everybody agrees to that? Okay, that's our commitment. Okay. So I'm going to show you one cultural neuroscience study just as an illustration of neuroplasticity so that we understand to what level does culture seep into our neurology. So this is a typical study. A university laboratories, usually from a psychology or neuroscience department within a typical university. Here it's in Denmark. They collaborate with another university in China, and these researchers will collaborate on creating the outcome of this research. So what they'll do is they'll say, we're going to design a study that will try to trigger the same thing in two different people from two different cultures, and we want to see what does the brain scan or the fMRI, what does it say, what does it show about the differences? Usually, when you lay in the brain scan device, usually they give you a screen where you will get your instructions, like a computer screen, and then you'll get think of them as joysticks or buttons, and they will ask you a question, and usually there are two questions. They'll say, if it's this, push your right button. If it's that, push the left button. What they're trying to do is, at that same time, as you're pushing that button, they are scanning your brain reaction, and they're seeing which part of your brain are active by seeing where the blood flow goes. And then they can make some assumptions. In this particular case, they have people from Denmark in Denmark, and then Chinese in China. And they had them sit in a scanner, and they showed them 3 types of words. Things that describe social roles, things that describe mental traits, and things that describe physical attributes. This really doesn't concern us as much as the fact that they are physical, mental, and social. So you have people in Denmark, people in China. Here's what they could see, here's what the researchers could see from the brain activation. This region here, called the medial prefrontal cortex, the only thing we need to know about it for the purposes of this course is that it is the part of the brain that will get activated if I am thinking about myself, if I am thinking about who I am, my identity, my preferences, my needs, my thoughts, my feelings. This area will get activated. You can see here that for the Danish, this marks the level or the significant activation level. So think of this as like the 4 bars on your cell phone. You get a strong connection when you have those 4 bars. So they could see strong activation for the Danish in this particular area on the social, mental, and physical. The Chinese, however, you could see this activation not very significant. Again, same brain, same region, same exercise, different activation. Okay? Now, what they found is that, wait a minute, there's another region that showed significant differences between the two. This region, however, this is the one that gets activated when I am trying to read your mind. I'm trying to understand what is your mental state? What is your emotional state? What are you thinking about? What are you thinking or what are you feeling? So this area would get activated. So you can see this difference between these two regions. One is I will go inside and deeper inside myself, and one, I'm going to try to look outside. And it's all in response to trying to formulate an answer to this question, which is, does this adjective describe you, or does this adjective describe somebody else? Somebody else could be like an actor, a musician, a politician. So when the person is sitting in the lab, in the brain scanner, and they're thinking about these, they're asking, does this apply to me? They're being asked, does this apply to me, push right? Does this apply to, say, for example, Mike Jagger, for example? And you can see the difference between the two when the individual in the scanner is trying to formulate information about themselves. One, the Danish, went more deeper into the self. One incorporated the other, especially when it comes to the social.
Are you saying about yourself and then to think about other people in that context? So it's basically internal and external.
Yes. So this one, when they were answering the same question, went internal. Answering the same question, this person went, the Chinese went external, or incorporated the external, the other.
It'd be nice to have an example of that question.
Huh?
It'd be nice to have an example of that question so you could really...
Yeah, and the question is very simple. Does this adjective describe you, or does it describe somebody else? Meaning...
Oh, it's an or question.
Yeah, it's just, so when the person, so basically, just a very simple question. The key here is that it's the same type of question, it's the same brain, it's the same neurology, but how we are using it has been, how we are using our neurology has been shaped by what cultures these two different people came from. And so the rest of the training, or the rest of today, will be going towards trying to understand where this difference comes from. Any questions? Any reactions?
Yeah, some of that wouldn't it really, I understand there's a cultural tendency, but a lot of it, and when you were talking about this earlier, it seemed to me, when I encounter issues with different people, you have to address it as an individual, of course.
Yep.
And even though there may be cultural influences, you're still dealing with that person on an individual level. So, when you look at something like this, it seems that you're still going to have this similar differences between individuals versus just culture.
Yeah, and that's the challenge. That's a challenge because when you are encountering a difficulty with someone, let's say there is a disconnect, there will be some elements of it, and that's what makes the culture different. There will be some elements that are just personality, something that you could probably encounter with somebody from your own culture. But it could also be cultural. So this is what's difficult about this, is because we like to know, we like some clarity, we like certainty, we like to be able to say, and this is just a need for us to have that certainty. What if we switch our thinking by assuming it's actually a miracle that we can actually understand each other, given this? It's actually a miracle that we can actually collaborate and coordinate actions. Now that would change our thinking, because that will force us to say, whenever there is a little connection, it's a huge win and we celebrate it. Now, when we encounter challenges, we go, what's wrong? It's because that assumption. It's because our brain really likes it when it's effortless. We don't like to work really hard. Our brain really does not like effort unless we're interested in that. Unless it's interested, like I want to learn the guitar. Now I can exert my effort. But at work, I just want to use the same system of thinking, and I want everybody to act the same way and respond the same way, because really that would make me feel very happy. It's all about me.
I would argue that project managers by nature are not that way, because we're constantly having to evaluate situations. And we're not going to say it's automatic. Nothing's automatic in project management, right? You have to evaluate every situation. So,
yeah, but...
I think the difference is, there's two things. Firstly, this gentleman here was about to say something, and then the other part of it is, I agree with you in part, but I think what these statistics are saying that when you're, say, a typical Westerner responding as a project manager to a situation, you are evaluating, but you're evaluating relative to yourself, whereas it would seem from the statistics that if you were from an Asian society, you might be evaluating from the point of view of other or outside of self, because you'd be tapping not that you're not evaluating, but that you're evaluating in the framework, but in a slightly different framework. It's just a thought. And this
Yeah.
gentleman was about to say something.
Yeah, but I think but you know, your question is very powerful, and I want you to continue to ask, because it forces us to uncover why is it that we have these challenges. So I encourage you guys to ask questions, even though I might answer something different. I want you guys to be asking those questions, because that's what's really gonna get us to deeper into this, because this is really a deeper kind of conversation. And we will go deeper also in this class. But I just want you guys to really be asking those types of questions, because that's really what's important. Yes, sorry, we kept you waiting,
Yeah, I
Dennis.
was just going to bring up and stuff. I spent 10 years working for a Chinese corporation here in the United States, and that was one of the key things that you bring up there was its culture clash.
Yeah.
Big time. I mean, because this was an actual Chinese corporation that was operating in the U.S. and then taking basically U.S. technology back to China.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not proud to admit it, but it did happen.
Yes.
One of the key things that I noticed is that it had to do with the Chinese way of thinking, and I speak just from personal experience with having a decade of this, is that basically you're told to do something and there is no, how should I put it?
Resistance or
It's very linear.
challenging.
Yes, silentized.
Yeah. And and that's good, because I want you to keep that thought in mind. And the beautiful thing about today is that you will learn some things about your own culture. And in fact, it's through learning something about your own culture that you'll be able to learn about others. And that's what a lot of the training misses. You have to go deeper into your own culture, how your culture has shaped your perception, so that when you see someone doing, like you said right now, you will categorize it from your own lens, meaning that from the lens of your culture. So what you saw as total obedience and total, what if there is a different system of thought that calls that something else?
And what I wanted to bring up too is that because you spent a decade there and stuff, you basically have to deprogram yourself more
Yes.
or less
Yes.
into a different organization. That
Yeah.
was hard. That was very difficult.
Did you actually live in China?
Hmm?
Did you live in China? Or did you live here?
No, it was here.
You were here. Okay,
Yeah,
okay,
in the
okay, good.
Seattle area.
Good, yeah. You had to adopt a different system of thought.
Correct. And
Yeah.
it was at war with myself
Yeah.
basically inside.
It's the tension and resistance. It's the tension between authenticity and flex. We're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about it. There's a slide at the end. We're going to keep you guys here so you don't leave early. It's called core and flex. That's really very important. Yes, Jacqueline.
I'm sorry, your name is?
I'm Dennis.
Dennis. Dennis.
I would like to ask, when you say you had to deprogram yourself, was that to work with other Chinese companies or to return to working with American companies?
No, after working for the Chinese company, I had to actually deprogram myself because I was so used to eventually melding myself to their ways that then when I worked for another corporation.
That was American or that was Chinese?
No, it was American.
American.
Yes, correct.
Just check. Okay, thank
Yeah. Neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity, is the answer. You were able to, because you were interested, your brain responded by embodying a different system of thought. And then that gave you potentially created abilities, but it also created additional challenges as you applied the same way of thinking. Well, you actually have potentially developed a third system. So you took you took one system, the Chinese system, and you developed a third one. So keep that in mind. We're going to come back to it. This is a very powerful concept. Okay, all that we need to know is that culture, that when you are trying to adjust, you are sometimes going against your neurology. Okay? You're going against your neuroplasticity. And then when it's hard, when it's difficult, It's because you're trying to add a new way of thinking, and your brain is saying, wait a minute, this has worked for us all these years, and what you're telling me is I need now to adjust and add another thing. So that resistance is because you're going against your neurology. Just want you to keep that in mind. And that's why it's difficult. And it's meant to be difficult. And it's meant to be challenging. So it's not meant to be easy. Okay, why? Why it's not meant to be easy? Because when we're born in a culture, everything that we learn from the moment we come to this world, it's teaching us how to be effective with others. How to be effective with others, because at one point in our history as a species, not getting along with others potentially meant that you could actually, it became a survival issue. If your tribe thinks that you are not fitting in and you're not behaving in a way that is serving the community, you could be ostracized, and that meant that you could die. So that meant something for us at one point in our history, but that's what we teach our children. We teach them to get along. We teach them to be like